What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with RK Outpost, and as someone who has a deep love and appreciation for the prequel trilogy, you can see up on my wall I had the Revenge of the Sith poster that I've had since, I don't know, probably like 2008 or 2009. It's one of my favorite things. People ask me about it all the time because they're really interested in it too, because a lot of people love Revenge of the Sith. A lot of people love that culmination of Anakin's storyline to become Darth Vader, one of the most iconic villains in film history, and obviously one of the greatest redemption stories as well. So when I saw this article and others like it, it wasn't the only one, why Star Wars fans have forgiven Hayden Christensen. We got this covered. It says, why Star Wars fans no longer hate Hayden Christensen's Anakin. And these are just a couple that I pulled out. I thought it was weird that all of a sudden I started seeing this, but I thought I'd talk about it because I don't think that he needed to be forgiven. I don't think that this huge swath of the fan base hates Hayden Christensen. I just don't think that's the case. Now, I do think that there are a lot of people that are coming back and maybe reevaluating the prequel trilogy now that they've seen Disney's sequel trilogy and the absolute garbage that it was, and they're coming back and saying, yeah, maybe the prequels with one unified vision with George Lucas, maybe those weren't as bad as I originally thought they were. But let's get into this article and see what they think Hayden Christensen needs to be forgiven for. Time has been good to the Star Wars prequels, for sure, as fans have been revisiting and forgiving them along with Anakin Skywalker himself, Hayden Christensen. God, remember the time when maybe he would be referred to as the Chosen One or something like that? Those are the good days. Before Disney, before The Rise of Skywalker, before the sequel trilogy. After neglecting the prequel trilogy for years, Star Wars fans have been revisiting it lately. Well, I don't know. I think that a lot of Star Wars fans really enjoy the prequel trilogy. And with that have come the acceptance for films and the actors that were once heavily criticized for their performance, especially Hayden Christensen. The Star Wars universe has witnessed the end of the Skywalker saga, and with it the close of decades of adventure and family stories that have built up one of the biggest franchises in entertainment. It's not surprising then that fans are looking back at the previous films in the saga, especially the prequels. George Lucas decided to move on with the prequel trilogy in the 90s as the new technological advancements allowed him to create characters. Yep. The results were 3 Star Wars films that weren't well received by critics and fans, although reaction to Episode 3 weren't as negative as those of its predecessors. I don't think it was negative at all. I think it was very positive, whether you're talking about fans or critics. I wonder where you're coming from with this. Not as negative, do you mean it was positive? Because it was. Whether you're talking critical or fan response, the response to Revenge of the Sith was positive. So I guess technically that's not as negative. It's just a strange way to phrase it. And the ones who received the worst punches were the cast, especially Jake Lloyd, Ahmad Best, and Hayden Christensen. Disney's sequel trilogy has not only allowed Star Wars fans to continue exploring this universe past the events of the original trilogy, but it also prompted multiple reevaluations of the prequel trilogy, with many fans forgiving them and their actors, especially Hayden Christensen. And the reason I reject this narrative from the beginning is people like Ahmad Best, people like Jake Lloyd, people like Hayden Christensen, they might be criticized for their acting, maybe. That may be the case, but I don't think them as people, if you see them when they went to Celebration, when they go to conventions, they are beloved. The biggest problem that they had was with the critics. The critics are the ones that had a problem with these actors and the way they were portrayed because they wanted to use it to absolutely smash the prequels and bring down George Lucas' creation, criticize George Lucas as a creator and a director, and using that, they used these characters and criticized the hell out of them. And we'll get into more of that later. Why Star Wars fans hated Hayden Christensen. There weren't many things that didn't go right with there were many things that didn't go right with the prequels. The overall concept for the stories was good, but not so much the execution. Many characters were underdeveloped, and then there's Jar Jar Binks, and the performance of many actors weren't the best. Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen got a lot of criticism, prompting Lloyd to retire from acting. And, when we talk about Jake Lloyd, we know about all the things that are going on with him right now. This came out a couple days ago, well, maybe a week or so, but I didn't really know how to make a video on it or just talk about it. But if you hadn't heard, Star Wars actor Jake Lloyd struggling with schizophrenia. His family spoke out about it, say how he's dealing with it. Jake Lloyd has serious mental issues. Now, for him, he was completely overwhelmed by the fame and everything that came with being young Anakin Skywalker. And he did get a little bit bullied in school from kids who were just being kids, and they would follow him around making lightsaber noises. Now, kids are going to be kids. You're going to get a little bit bullied at school. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is. And unfortunately, with the mental condition that he has, and the fact that he was so completely overwhelmed by requests for up to 60 interviews a day, people constantly calling him, and he finally just had to step away and go back. It's not because the fans hated him. That's not what any of this is about. And when you listen to him talk about it, and when you listen to his family talk about it, it's not this fan backlash. That's not what it was. So I don't understand why you're bringing that up when you're talking about fans forgiving Anakin, or fans forgiving Hayden. His performance in Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith wasn't the best, and it can be blamed on many things. Lucas's bad script, bad direction, or Christensen's unpolished acting skills. Whatever the case, critics and fans didn't take it lightly, and they voiced their dislike towards his performance, with many Star Wars fans going as far as to hating the actor instead of the character or the portrayal of it. And again, I'm sure there are a couple people. I'm sure that's the case. But I think far and wide, most people, if they did have a problem with it, they were critical of the directing, they were critical of the acting. They weren't really critical of Hayden Christensen as a person. And in fact, like I said, whenever he goes to these cons, he is just welcomed with open arms. People love seeing Hayden Christensen. So it's very strange to me that this is where we're going with this. But now we find out what the real, what I think the real crux of this article is, what they want to talk about. Besides just bashing George Lucas every chance they get, we have here. It's no secret that there's a lot of toxicity in the Star Wars fandom, which hasn't changed in recent years as online trolls targeted Kelly Marie Tran. Again, this online troll garbage. Go check out Ichibaka's video on the real story behind the Kelly Marie Tran Instagram. We've beat this to death. The fact that people were criticizing the character. They didn't like the character of Rose Tico. That is what was going on. And we also heard from Kelly Marie Tran herself about why she felt the way she did, because the Hollywood culture, it was all of her peers, the people in Hollywood. She felt like they would never see her as anything more than a background actress. And we've gone into detail about this. We don't need to beat it to death. But we know that this is just garbage. And given the prequels were, for many years, the final films in the Star Wars saga, many fans weren't willing to forgive and forget, and the Hayden Christensen hate continued for years, finally fading. I don't know. I thought they were going to talk about Ahmad Best somewhere here, but I don't see it. But anyway, they brought up Ahmad Best earlier, talking about Jar Jar Binks. Now, Ahmad Best came out and talked about that he nearly killed himself due to everything that had happened with the prequels, or with the Phantom Menace and the response to it. But it wasn't a fan backlash. It wasn't a fan response. Let's see the words of Ahmad Best himself. The actor opens up about his experience. I faced a media backlash that really made me feel like my life was over. There was just so much hate and anger and venom directed at me, and I took it personally. And then he goes into how so many people were talking about this was a racist stereotype. But the people who were doing that, it wasn't fans. It wasn't fans of Star Wars. It was the critics. Look at so many of the critic reviews talking about how Jar Jar Binks was a racist stereotype of a Jamaican character. That's what people were saying. Here it is. It hit me. It came right for me. I was called every racial stereotype you can imagine. There was this criticism of it being this Jamaican broken dialect, which was offensive because I'm of West Indian descent. I'm not Jamaican. It was debilitating. I didn't know how to respond. And of course, this was the media backlash, not the fans. Very important to note. Very important to note when we keep having all these articles talking about all these people that are harassed by the fans, and it's just not the case. And it's really infuriating to have to keep saying it. Star Wars fans have forgiven Hayden Christensen. The revisiting and reevaluation of Star Wars prequels have come with a radical change in the opinion of many fans. A lot have forgiven The Phantom Menace, even finding some silver linings among the mess, while many others have decided to let go of their hate towards Hayden. The reason beyond this are many, but the main ones are those who grew up with the sequels and whose first approach to the Star Wars universe were the prequels, are giving them another shot mainly for nostalgia reasons, which in turn means accepting Hayden Christensen. And it's not just about nostalgia, it's just about the fact that these are just better movies. It's one true vision. It's actually Star Wars. Now, you can talk about the practical effects, you can talk about maybe some dialogue if you want, but there's no denying that the feeling and the heart of these is true Star Wars. Many fans have also chosen to redirect their hate towards Disney, because whether they don't like their approach, or they still refuse to accept Lucasfilm as now a Disney property, or they simply didn't want more films. Disney's sequel trilogy hasn't been free of criticism, which has made fans look back to the prequels and make a comparison. The result being fans forgiving the prequels and Christensen as well. It's changed a lot over the years, with him being very well received by Star Wars fans all over the world. Whenever he attends conventions and other public events, that's basically always the way it was. Another reason why fans might have found forgiveness in their hearts is because Christensen hasn't appeared in many big films since Revenge of the Sith. He was in Jumper and Takers and only appeared in smaller films. Perhaps not seeing him so often has made fans forgive Christensen for his portrayal, or has driven them to look into his other works, finally getting to see another side of him. More often than not, directors, actors are not just compatible, which might have been the case of Lucas and Christensen. It's all about perspective. And then they go into a great point here. I do agree with this, but basically the only thing in the article. They should have actually brought him back right. If they were going to do this garbage they did with the sequel trilogy, which they were already down the path of, they should have brought him back. They should have let him appear as a Force ghost. They should have done something to honor Hayden Christensen, honor Anakin. But in reality, it doesn't really matter, because they destroyed his entire legacy. The Chosen One is no longer the Chosen One anymore. So, I guess to bring him back, that would have honored Hayden a little bit, but the character of Anakin Skywalker is freaking done. It's finished. They killed it. They killed his entire arc, and he doesn't matter anymore. So I don't really even need to get too much into this. But I wanted to cover that because this whole narrative that Hayden Christensen was just reviled by fans, I just don't think it's the case. I was a Star Wars fan growing up in the prequel era. I didn't hate Jake Lloyd. I didn't hate Ahmad Best. I didn't hate Hayden Christensen. Did I have issues with some of the performances, with some of the decisions? Yeah, it's not without flaws, but like I said before, you can criticize things, but there's no doubt that the prequel trilogy was George Lucas's vision beginning to end. And that's one of the great things about George's Star Wars, the true Star Wars, not this Disney garbage we're getting now. And I just don't think that there was any big thing to be forgiven for. Were there some people that didn't like Hayden? A small portion, I'm sure, just hated his guts for some reason, because you're going to have crazy people in every community, any place you go. There's no doubt. But in my experience and from what I've seen online, in person, people love Hayden Christensen. They have a deep respect for him as the portrayal of Anakin Skywalker. And the fact that we got to see his journey finished in Revenge of the Sith, one of my, I'm going to say it, my favorite Star Wars movie. It's not Empire, it's Revenge of the Sith. Do I think Empire is probably a better movie? Technically, yeah. But Revenge of the Sith is my favorite. That's why it's sitting right up there on my wall. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Star Wars fans have had this big, they've just forgiven Hayden Christensen? Do you think that they just hated him and now all of a sudden they're changing their minds? Or do you think that this article's just wrong? And that most people have had a love and a respect for Hayden, even if they didn't necessarily appreciate the character. If they're Star Wars fans, they liked Hayden Christensen. Same thing go with the sequel trilogy stuff. I hate so many of the characters of the sequel trilogy, but I don't hate the actors. I don't really like Daisy Ridley. I don't know why, but I don't hate any of the actors unless they come out and say something. You have things like Captain Marvel with Brie Larson, right? That's an actress that has come out and said something pretty unprovoked that got a lot of vitriolic response. That is something to not like an actress for or an actor, but just because their portrayal in a movie, I don't think that many people actually hold those views. But let me know. Maybe I'm totally off. Let me know what you guys think. Hayden Christensen, has there been some huge forgiveness, or have people always had a genuine love and affection for him? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video out there, ring the bell for notifications, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.